Hello, this is Rick Adams, president of Saf-T-Gym and inventor of the patented rubber rope gym. I'd like to take you through a brief demonstration of the features that separate my unit from the typical resistance tube training. This video is intended for strength coaches and trainers who would be familiar with resistance tube, and I will be able to explain the differences in the two. First, let me apologize in advance for the quality of the videos as it was filmed in my TV room. I installed it in this room, that way I can actually watch TV at the same time I'm working out, which increases the incentive to actually do the workout. I'll be demonstrating this and narrating myself as I'm most familiar with it. Ideally, we would have a good-looking trainer and a very knowledgeable individual who would be narrating the background information. And I will first say any information on here is stuff I have through my experimentation the last 3 years. So the things I have learned is my own opinion. It's not coming from any strength coach, and it's not being intended for the general public. This is just to show the features of this unit to strength coaches who can appreciate what this unit is capable of. Okay, for now I'll throw the script away and kind of just wing it from here. The essential difference between my unit and resistant tube is, with resistant tube, it's generally about 5 feet long, which means you have to, from the attachment point, wherever being at the bottom, middle, or high, you have to come up roughly 5 feet to even begin training. And so basically you've wasted 5 feet of space before you can get started. And so in training you'd be moving farther away, which if you have a small room would simply not work. Plus, if you're doing overhead presses and stuff, you already are a curl or something, you're already wasted 5 feet of motion, so you really can't start down here lower. So with my wall-mounted gym, it has 4 separate resistance tubes, and actually I'm using what's called truck rubber rope, which has been around for decades. Truckers use it on their tarps to hold their loads in place. And I have 4 separate ropes built into this unit here, and they're all attached to this carriage unit here, which will go from floor all the way to the ceiling or any place in between. And the essential difference is with resistance tube, you have to walk at 5 feet to begin training. With this here, the resistance starts right at the pulley right here. So we can do a very complete motion without really getting that far away from the wall. And with the main patent feature of my unit is having a loop system where instead of having like a 5 foot long resistance tube, we actually have roughly 15 feet of rubber rope built into the system, which allows for a very large range of motion. We can probably come out as much as 10 feet with this unit here. And rubber rope does come in different tensions. This would be the lightest one here. It starts at about 2.5 pounds and will increase probably up to 10 pounds if you walk out maybe 10 feet. The heaviest one over here starts at about 10 pounds. And if I went out 10 feet, I would be exceeding over 100 pound resistance. And actually, I made a test of the heaviest rubber rope. This was my test subject right here. And I actually hung 220 pounds of weight from this unit here, which I had used a differential chain hose to lift it up because it was the rope kept stretching and stretching. So anyway, I hung 220 pounds from this particular unit you see right here, and after 2 hours it finally broke. And so that shows the capability this rubber rope has. And the good news is my proprietary technique loop system on the end here, it did not break. So that was very important consideration. Now I'm going to start with take the typical exercise I do and try to explain some of the important features of each. I like to start with a rowing motion, and typically with rowing you're doing standing and pulling either one hand or 2 hands. In the process of doing this, all the resistances, my hands are basically the weak link. So the resistance transfers through my hands, through the body, to the feet. And so doing this motion, the first thing to get tired would be the hands, and maybe then the arms, and the legs would not really get a very serious workout. So in the process of developing this unit, I've come up with a whole bunch of different attachments for it. And one of the most important I call my waist belt, which I will step into now. And so by using this unit, I will be able to transfer some of the resistance onto my legs directly instead of everything going through the arms. And one thing I have done, I've actually made some short pieces of the heaviest rubber rope here. And so these have much heavier tension. And so what I do is I hook the heavier ones onto the waist belt. So all this goes directly from the hips right to the feet. And so by doing this method, I'm able to divide up the resistance. So this is all on the legs to begin with, and then I can use a little lighter. Now the arms are not doing all the way; they're only doing a part of it, but everything transfers into the legs, so you can get a very heavy-duty leg workout, and also whatever your upper body is capable of, your back muscles, we can also get a very serious workout. And you can also turn sideways and get more rotational, the transverse muscles in there too. So I like to start off with these in high reps. It really gets the body warmed up good before I go to my other leg exercises. And from there I can unhook all these straps from the handle and put them on to the waist belt. Now all resistance is being transferred, right, is from the hips on down, so it takes a lot of stress off the back, but it puts it directly on the legs. And we're going to rotate around like this. Now we can do a thrusting motion, or if I was younger I could be doing some vertical leaps here, but I've had a hip replacement, so I have to be more cautious. It's nice sometimes to have something to hang on to, and it also makes a very good calf exercise too. So after I've done my squats, I'll just lean forward and finish off with the calves. Now there's a lot of sports applications for this particular unit, and one is to turn sideways like this and do sideways squats. And if you're a skier, which I'm not, but if you were, you can picture what this is doing for your knees, as we put a lot. With skiing, when you go into the corners, you have a lot of lateral force on the knees. This way you really have this lateral force in addition to the squatting motion. Now we can get some of the, I'm going to do some of the abductor and adductor work, so I'm going to lighten resistance a lot. I'm purposely doing this with minimal editing so you can realistically see what's really involved with switching from one exercise to the other. And so for this I'm going to use the two lightest units here. Now typically if you're doing your abductor work, you put an ankle cuff around your ankle here, and so you begin the exercise with, for demonstration I'll just put this. So in this case, it's all on the foot is not involved. But when I do this exercise, I like to actually put the strap around the foot itself. And so now my foot is totally involved, which is going to help strengthen the ankle and more realistically simulate. So if, like a basketball, if you're cutting, your whole foot's involved in that particular motion there. So I'll do these, and then I'll switch it, turn around, and once again keeping it on the foot like this. Now I'll do the opposite motion for the adductors. Now if I wanted to work hip flexors, I could do like this. You can see it rise up the leg, and so I've developed another attachment for this particular motion. Okay, to work the hip flexors, I will simply stick my toe into this particular unit. Now, everything's evolved from the toe all the way up from there. I probably have too much resistance for this, but you can see the hip flexors, everything down to the ankle joint, everything's involved in this motion. So if you're a punter or something like that, it's a total stimulation all the way to the foot. Or if you're doing soccer style kicking, you can kind of get the rotation there also. And next we can simply put the heel into the strap like this. And now we can do the rear extension motion. And you can picture the running, everything down to and including the toes involved in this particular exercise. And you can also do standing leg curl motion also. And once again, everything is involved. You're not slinging out just the hamstrings, all the glutes and everything else is all involved in that. Okay, now that I've finished most of the leg motions, now we'll go to some upper body exercises. In this case, we'll start with the upper position. First of all, I'll raise it to a medium height here and remove the ankle cuff. Now I'm going to install the double handle again. In this case, we'll move all the way to the top. And there's a lot of different training methods you could use on this. One that I really like a lot is unilateral training, where I will be doing one arm at a time or one foot at a time. And we can also combine that with opposition training. For example, I'm doing a pulling down motion, which simulates the chin up or high pull. And so I can do this until exhaustion. Then I can immediately turn around and do a decline press motion. So without stopping, I'm using different muscles, but at the same time, the cardiovascular system continues to work hard. And then I switch to the other arm and do the same thing. And we can quickly drop it down here to medium height and do a standing rowing motion and turn around to a standing pressing motion. Or we can also do a lot of rotational exercises. Now another feature, one of the important advantages of my particular unit is the accessories I developed to go along with it. You've already seen the ankle stuff, the waist stuff, and the single handle. One I developed here, which allows bilateral training. Get this hooked up here first. Okay, I'll raise it back up to the upper position here. Okay, this particular unit here has two sets of straps, a short set and a long set. And so the short set, by sticking my hands through here and gripping up, I've pretty much removed the grip from being a weak link because it's all wrapped around my wrist, and so I can pull much harder than I normally would. And so here I can do a pull down motion. This is actually too light, I just use it for demonstration purposes. So I can do a set of pull downs like this with the short straps and immediately turn around and do a set of push downs with the upper straps. Long straps. And then we can quickly drop it down here lower. So I'm going to grab quite enough resistance there. Okay, now we can do the medium standing rowing exercise. And now I'll turn around and do standing bench press, but this particular unit has adjustable width, so I can push these two buttons here and move the attachment points out wider. And now I can do basically a fly type motion. So this is a pretty good simulation of what you can do with a free motion type machine, where I can adjust the width of the starting points, and so I can get more resistance when my hands come together like this. Of course, I can do regular bench press, and one interesting or important feature of using the resistance tube is, if I were doing a barbell bench press, there's been a lot of injuries caused because you laying on a bench, your scapula is kind of trapped in position, and it puts a lot of stress on rotator cuffs. And I, for one, have a torn rotator cuff, probably from bench press and maybe a few other exercises. But this way, standing, you have total freedom of movement of the shoulders, And plus, bench press, from my experience, the injuries occur when you touch your chest and push the initial push off, you have a higher resistance. In this case, the resistance decreases as you come back and increases as your arms are extended. So I think it's a more easier on the joint by having the resistance tube method instead of using a barbell or a machine, which would also restrict yourself. You can also do a lot of good arm exercises with this. I'll raise it higher here so we can do a tricep press down, like this, kind of getting the end of the motion. Or we can quickly grab the longer straps and get the beginning motion here. And for biceps, we can drop all the way to the bottom here and probably grab the long straps to start with. And depending on how far out you move, the resistance changes, which is really nice. You can start closer to warm up and then step out a little farther to get more resistance. And then as you fatigue, you can move in closer and get a few more reps to finish it off. And this particular motion kind of gets the beginning range of motion. If you grab the short straps, then you can kind of get the contracted part of the biceps also. So now I'll get into some abdominal exercises, in which case there are several ways to do the abdominals. I kind of like to start with the double handle and raise up higher here. Now you could do, in this case we can do a good rotation motion where we're working the abdominals but also getting the transverse in there too. And this simulates what a lot of CrossFit gyms, they'll have a sledgehammer hitting a tire or something. We can pretty much simulate that particular motion with this exercise. Or we can just stand straight out, in which case we're getting the rectus abdominis directly. Or we can pop down lower once again and get the rotation involved. And you can do strictly a pull this way, or you can turn this way, involve a little more rotation. So these have a lot of good sports applications, like swinging a baseball bat. You can pretty much simulate what's involved in it. We can get a total simulation by putting on this handle here, which simulates the grip of swinging the bat more closely, or a tennis racket. Same idea here. Even backhand. Now to get directly to the abdominals, we can once again go back to the waist strap, in which case I'll raise this up higher. And then here I'll put my forearm through it, and now I can do directly to the obliques here. And since we're not using the hands, then we can pull much harder than we would otherwise. So I'll do a set this away, and then I can move the strap to the front of the shoulder, in which case you can get more of the abdominals. And we can also drop it down lower here. In this case I like to put it on my upper arm. Now I can get a more intense rotation involved here. One of the newest attachments I just developed actually just 2 weeks ago, and the thought behind this was when we're working, and we're trying to, like in my case I've got a bad shoulder, and so one of the recommended exercise would be external rotation, which is a very weak motion, and this is my good arm. With my left arm, which had a rotator cuff, this would be much more difficult. But basically, this is starting at 2.5 pounds and increases as they come out like that. But if you've had surgery, which I'm anticipating soon enough, you need to get a much lighter resistance and a more consistent increase in resistance. So I've come up with this little system here that uses a regular nylon coated cable and has a pulley here. And so by putting this particular unit on here and having two ends here, if I hold one with this hand and the other hand does the rotation, I've cut the resistance in half. And so instead of using 2.5 pounds to begin with, I'm starting with 1.25. And another advantage of this system is if I go directly from the resistance tube, if I come out 2 feet or 3, the resistance increases, much faster than it would when I go through this pulley. If I move this 2 feet, the resistance tube is only moving 1 foot. And so the rate of increase is actually cut in half, in addition to having the resistance itself cut in half. And so this way it makes it much better for doing rehab work. Now this is kind of a nuisance to hang on with one hand, and it limits what you can do here. And so in the process of the learning experience, I've gone back to my waist belt, which I'll step into here. Now these has a system here, the size of the waist can be varied, and then I use this buckle here to kind of cinch it up so it makes for a quicker to tighten. Now I am, instead of having to hold on to it, my stomach or waist is actually holding the other end. Now for arm exercise, it's not necessary, but this opened up a whole new possibility of exercises by having this attached to the waist. I'm going to put some more heavy resistance on now to do a better demonstration. Now I'm going to move this up higher. Well, let me take it here for now. Now if I'm doing a standing bench press motion, as I push out, the other end is tending to pull my waist in. And so I have to forcefully keep my torso, actually working these muscles to keep from having to pull them in. So this way it trains your torso to move forward, or at least hold position as you're doing the exercise. And this would have a lot of good benefits for sports applications, even if you're, I put this hand to simulate golfing. So now I have to actually keep my hips into it as I do it, otherwise I'm going to go back like that. So this way I'm developing my arm motion, but I'm also keeping my torso rigid as I'm doing it, in addition to getting rotation involved there. And the same would be true for baseball or whatever you're doing here. And another nice feature this resistance tube has is, if I were doing a throwing motion like I am here with a weight stack, you have to pretty much go slowly. But with this particular unit, the resistance tube has no inertia, so I can go very rapid motion, but the resistance still is maintained and increases as I'm doing this. Another little thing I've come up with to really simulate exact sports motion, I use this little wrist strap, in which case it's kind of like the big strap. It goes around my wrist here, but the advantage is I can feed this through my hand like that. Now, in this case, I can actually grab a baseball, and so I'm actually doing the throwing motion, but I'm total simulation that I'm actually holding a ball, whether it be a baseball or football. At the same time, I'm building the strength of actually everything involved, clear down to the fingertips. And once again, I could do the rapid motion, the rotation, and also keeping the waist, the hips involved as I do it. Otherwise, I'll be pulling back like that. So this way, I have pretty total simulation of the sports motions from the feet all the way through the body, clear to the fingertips. not the most popular exercise, but I'll demonstrate it anyway. We'll be doing some neck work, in which case I'll use the waist belt. So in this case, put on a couple of medium waist straps. And so let's take the head off of this one. So here we put it around the forehead. So I'm working my neck, but everything from the neck clear all the way through the body to the toes is all involved in this exercise. So another really nice feature of training with this wall-mounted rubber-up gym is that all the exercises I have developed I've been from a standing position. So in addition to developing strength, I've also done a lot of balance work too. And one important feature of my wall-mounted rubber-up gym instead of resistance tube is when you're using resistance tube, generally, if you look at all the videos available online, you'll see people doing, well, a lot of times they'll do a squat motion, standing on the resistance tube as they're doing it. Now this immediately creates a possible hazard because depending on what shoes you're wearing or what surface you're standing on, you're creating an abrasive effect which could actually, make the resistance tube break, and then it would come up and slap you in the head or something. As Senator Harry Reid from Nevada recently was injured using resistance tube. I'm not sure what exercise he was performing, but whether the tube hit him in the head or whether the resistance tube broke and he fell backwards or something and hit himself. But the point is, he was probably standing on it, in which case it broke and actually caused the accident. With my wall-mounted unit, the resistance tube doesn't really ever touch the floor. You're always working off this pulley somehow. And one important thing to remember when using resistance are the old saying about safety in numbers. This is important on this one. If I'm using a lightweight, I'm starting at 2.5 pounds, and I could walk out 10 feet or maybe even 15 feet and get up to 15 pounds or something. But the safety in numbers idea, if I want 15-pound resistance, just simply put on 2 tubes. Now I have the 15 here, but also if one breaks, I have a second one to help me balance when it does happen. So this, by using several at once, it just always decreases the chance of anything serious happening. But the central thing is that instead of resistance tube where you're doing small muscle exercises with light resistance, I can go to many hundreds of pounds with 100 pounds right here, and then the second one adds another 100, plus the short straps at the bottom. As soon as they're stretched out 3 or 4 feet, they add another 100 pounds or more. So I can get quite a few hundred pounds resistance. So you can do serious strength training at the same time. Everything is done standing and improving balance. Anyway, thank you for listening.